Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Friday Promap webinar. My name's Paul Marshall. I work as a client director at Landmark. Also online is my colleague Nick Mills, who's the National Training Manager for Promap. This afternoon's sessions is focused primarily on the data that you can take out of Promap for use in CAD or GIS. This is our export route for those of you who know Promap. So spend the first half of today, we're just going to talk through the data, how it's put together, where it comes from, the tolerances and the licenses and the formats that go with it. And in the second half, Nick will take you through a little journey live on the Promap system to show you how you can quickly get hold of these, how you can get quotes for the data you're after, how you can save the map and make the most of the tiles that you're saving, and just show you build some confidence in using the system. So I hope that's okay for you. If you do have any questions as we're going through today, on the right hand side of the screen you'll see a question facility, so please do just type them in there, and at the end of the session today myself and Nick will stay online for a few more minutes and answer them for you. Also, if you're having any issues with any of the audio or any of the presentation itself, do drop a note into that side of it, and Nick will pick it up and try and help you from there. So a good place to start today is probably just to give you a quick intro to Promap. I'm sure you're all more than familiar with it, but for those of you who maybe aren't, Promap is fundamentally an online tool designed to give you access to all the layers of Ordnance Survey mapping around a site, which can be accessed over any browser that you wish to use. Once you've got a secure login for that, you can quite simply mark out your site, and then you can select the data you want to take out for use. And the key thing really to remember is that all the data is done on a pay-as-you-go basis, so you can very simply allocate that to specific projects, specific clients if need be. There's no upfront subscription. You log in, you mark your site, you pay for what you want to take out. Now, Promap is known predominantly for mapping, so it seems like a really good place to start in terms of highlighting the data for CAD that can be got from Promap. We are the premium partner of the Ordnance Survey. We resell all their data. One of the biggest products that is taken out of Promap for people who use additional data in CAD and GIS is the OS Master Map. The OS Master Map is the one that's scaled at 1 to 1250. It's still the key, the most accurate mapping layer that Ordnance Survey produce of the country. It clearly shows building outlines, fields, pathways, boundaries, etc. And for CAD users, you can take the data out as a DXF, a DWD, a DGN, or for those of you who use GIS, you've got the option to take it as GML. Now, for a long time, MasterMap was actually the only vector data set that Ordnance Survey produced. So that's the one that has the full attribute data behind it, which can be viewed within any CAD software. But relatively recently, they changed that, and they bought a data set out called VectorMap Local. Now, this can be purchased through Promap as well. The key thing with this is you've got the ability to scale it between 1 to 3K and 1 to 20K without altering the clarity of the image or distorting some of the data that's in there. What you find sometimes with MasterMap is if you're looking at a large area and you zoom out, some of the data can get a bit blurred because there's just so much on there with the levels of accuracy. The VectorMap Local can solve this problem. So again, if you're looking at a larger area in CAD, perhaps for a feasibility study in the first instance, you can take this. It's still got the building outlines, it's still got the field boundaries, and it's still fully attributed with all the Ordnance Survey topographical layers behind it. So again, what we're seeing is more people are taking this data before moving on, especially to the OS Master Map. So again, one to be aware of on the mapping side. Now, although Promap is really well known for its mapping, there are also a number of other key data sets you can take out for CAD. The key ones of them are largely the height and the 3D models, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. Once upon a time, these models were just simple. They only had readings every 5 meters or so. But with some of the advancements in LiDAR and radar data technology collection methods, we're now able to provide height, terrain, and 3D models with tolerances of plus or minus 5 to 15 centimeters in some cases. And again, all these are available through Promap and really have evolved the way the market looks at some of the products you can layer on top of mapping when taking them out of Promap. So to give you an idea of some of the additional stuff you can get on top of the 2D base map, that you can take out, previously mentioned. There's an OS detail map with building height attribute product. Very simply, this gives you, with your 2D map that you're taking out, the building height attributes. That's the very top of the building, done from the Ordnance Survey's digital surface model. And in the attribute table, anything that's got the classification of a building or the footprint of a building will have that building height attribute in there. So again, you can get very simply just an idea of the meterage you're dealing with. The other relatively new product from Ordnance Survey is the 3D data bundle, which combines the base map, the OS detail map. It takes the building height data that are formerly mentioned in that attribute, and it combines it with the OS terrain model. And what that does is it builds up a very basic 3D image of the area you're looking at, which can be available not only in a DWG, for those of you who can use it in CAD, but if you're working with clients, for example, who don't have access to CAD, you can get it as a layered PDF. Now, this is a very basic 3D model and comes with a tolerance of plus or minus a meter. It looks a little bit like that you see on screen. So again, it certainly has its uses. Buildings can be taken in and replaced and new buildings put in, sun shadow studies, etc. can be run. But again, it's really just to give you an indication of the 3D visualization as opposed to working in high level accuracy. Some of the other data that can be grabbed for CAD and other areas from Promap, we work with a company called Get Mapping, who are the same company who provide Google Earth with aerial photography. We have a layer that can be viewed at 25 centimeter resolution, but these can also be taken as prints and as images up to 12.5 centimeter resolution as well. And for those of you working in CAD, we have a specific format called GeoTIFF. Now, what a GeoTIFF does is it gives you the aerial photo, but it comes with a world file as well, which has geo coordinates in it. Now, with those two things combined, when you throw that into CAD on top of your 2D base map, it sits in its correct geolocation. So again, you can have an aerial photograph that will work in CAD, and again, will layer on top of your 2D base map to give you, again, just that fuller and complete picture of a site you might be working on. We also have access to an aerial, historic aerial photo layer. So again, if you want to go back in time to see what was on your site, maybe check any potential contamination risks, any boundary disputes, anything like that, we have access to a number of aerial, historic aerial photographs, which brings me nicely onto our historic raster mapping as well. Now, Landmark has the largest collection of historic maps in the UK. So again, if you want to go back onto your site to see what you're building upon, you can do so. We go back to about the 1840s with some small scale stuff, the 1 to 10,000, large scale at 1 to 2,500, or post Second World War when it went to 1 to 1250. We have some unpublished editions, stuff that was done in between published editions of Ordnance Survey mapping, which didn't make it to market, which again showed changes that perhaps might not be highlighted on an actual published Ordnance Survey maps. Historic aerials, which I've already alluded to. We've got some Cold War maps as well. So this was the Russian KGB who were covertly surveying Great Britain from the end of the Second World War up to the end of the 80s, seemingly. And again, a lot more accurate than anything Ordnance Survey have ever done. Every road has a width on it, for example. There's various army battalions and things like that on there, which the government don't allow Ordnance Survey to map. So again, just sort of fills a few gaps in for you. There's some historic building ownership stuff, the GODE maps from pre-Second World War, when Ordnance Survey used to publish occupier information in whenever they published a map. And again, this can all be combined with a tool we've got called EnviroCheck Analysis. So again, you can drop these in, they can be used digitally, and you can combine one date over another to get a full build up over the years of what your area looked like over current aerial photography. This brings me nicely onto our height and contour data model. Now, as I alluded to earlier, there's been some real moves here, some real improvements in how we collect the data. It used to be, going back a while, that we would only ever be able to provide terrain and height models with readings every 5 meters, so it wasn't that accurate. But the Environment Agency have done some fantastic work in how they collate the data. So they use a method called LiDAR data collection. What that essentially is a plane flies up and down Great Britain, a little bit like you're cutting your lawn, and will fire a light beam down to pick up heights and terrains on the Earth below it. What that does, it goes through a process called geo-author rectification, which takes out things like parked cars and gives us a fully accurate model of terrain and heights on there. The way we've improved it now, so where we used to have just 5 metre, we've now got models the way you have readings every 25 centimetre, every 50 centimetre, 1 metre or 2 metre, depending on the site you want to view. There's also a tolerance around this of plus or minus 5 to 15 centimetres. So what we're dealing with is fairly accurate here. And what all that collection does is it combines into 2 products that can be bought, a DTM and a DSM. The DSM is short for the digital surface model. A digital surface model essentially measures the height values of the first surface on the ground. So this includes terrain features, buildings, vegetations, power lines, etc. The digital surface model therefore will provide a topographical model of the Earth's surface for you. A DTM, which is a digital terrain model, essentially provides a topographical model of the bare Earth or the underlying terrain of the Earth's surface. This is initially derived from the DSM I mentioned earlier, but it's done by digitally removing all the cultural, i.e. the man-made stuff, and the vegetation features around it. Which brings me nicely onto the 3D models that you can get from Promap. So we work with a company, we partner with a company called Z Mapping, who provide 3D models of the country. They do it in medium resolution, which looks a little bit like this, and high resolution that looks a little bit like this. In terms of tolerance, this is the much more accurate than the previous Ordnance Survey one. We showed you it works with a tolerance of plus or minus 30 centimetres. It comes fully attributed. So again, you can take buildings out, you can put your own buildings in, you can run sun shadow studies, spin it, look at it from any kind of direction. It all comes off aerial photography, which is less than a year old as well. So that's guaranteed on that side of it. And in terms of formats, we always provide 2 formats. So you can get it in DWG, you can get it in SKP for those of you who work in SketchUp. There's also the option for 3DS as well. So that brings me to the end of a little chat around the data, some of the stuff you've got. I'm going to hand over to Nick at this point, who will show you, will give you a practical demonstration of how you can actually use Promap to get hold of that data when you're working on your projects. Just want to add, just before I do hand over, if anyone wants to see any samples of anything they've seen in the last few minutes, let me know. My contact details will be there at the end. We'll provide them for you in the formats you need, and you can crack on and have a play with them. But now, Nick, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Well, Paul's covered the very much the what's available. I'm going to look now at the how to obtain it element of the system. So we're going to take you into Promap and show you how you can get the export data out. Also show you a couple of the other little hints, tips, tricks, which might make your use of the system in this regard a little bit easier. Now, for the purposes of today, I'm accessing Promap via Google Chrome. This latest version of Promap that we've got accessible through all the major browsers now, all the major operating systems. And as I say, I'm going in via Google Chrome to obtain what I need. Now, when I initially go into the main Promap screen, I just launch the application in the top right-hand corner. If you do want to visit the training center at any particular stage, you can do it when you've got the application open, or from this front screen where you will find other guides referring to the export process, also links through to the various data sets and stuff that Paul has mentioned if you want to look at those in more detail. Once you've launched the application, you will initially start at this screen here. So you just enter your login details, click login, that will take you straight into the application from there. Now, upon first arrival into the system, just to highlight some of the features as far as export is concerned, that's important in Promap, the various map players down the right-hand side. Now, I'll touch on a couple of these as we go through this practical element, but it is worth noting that even if you want to obtain the master map topography layer on the system, you don't have to go into the master map topography layer on the right-hand side to obtain it. You can outline your sites using one of the higher level layers, the aerial, the vector map, local, or the open map. As an example, you can outline your site on there and still obtain that master map topography layer. Now, the reason that that's important, that master map topography layer on the right-hand side of the screen under mapping layers is the only mapping layer within the system that you pay to view when you're going to look at a new site. It's the only one that's got roaming limits. So if you are able to, using the information that's displayed on the open map, vector map, local, aerial, outline your site on those, you can use those to then export your master map topography layer and avoid viewing charge and potentially any roaming charges as well. And I will demonstrate that process as we go through. But as I say, this is where we start. Now, across the top taskbar, you search for your site in the top left-hand corner. There you can search by the address, tile, grid reference. You can even search by land registry title number as well at this particular stage. Now, if you are searching by land registry title number, just be aware that at the moment, the data is only currently available for England and Wales. We are hoping to add Scotland at a later date as well, but it's not in there as yet. If you do use the title number search, that will work slightly differently from the others, but it can speed up the export process. If you search based on the address, tile, or grid reference, it will always initially open your map up on the open map layer and then rely on you using the draw and measure tools available under export to outline your site from there. If you use the land registry title number, that will take you straight into the master map topography layer and will immediately apply your title outline onto the map for you. So you'll immediately have your outlined area there. From there, if you want to alter that shape, you can do, but you'll already be a long way, as I say, ahead in the process of outlining your site. So it is just worth something to be aware of. To the right of the options for searching for new sites, you've also now got the ability to upload shape files in. So if you want a shape file that you want to obtain additional data for, perhaps you want height data for aerial photography, you want it in the vector map local color vector as well as the master map. What this allows you to do, just click on there. That will then take you into your files. And at that point, you can download your shapefile onto the system. What it will then do is put up the relevant mapping for the area that you're interested in and apply your polygon onto it. So your work again, much as we said with using that land registry title search, your outline will already be there for you to work with. If you want to search through your previously saved maps and use one of those, if you know you've done something in this area previously, the icon immediately to the right-hand side of the upload option will take you into that save map area. There you've got 3 different methods of searching for your maps. Down the left-hand side, we'll show you your 10 most recently accessed maps in the system. In the central section, we'll show you all of the various folders that you've got on the system and the maps saved into those folders, all located in that area there. And with all of these, as I say, when you click on the folder, it will show you the maps that are then contained therein. As I say, just click on those to get more information about them. It is worth noting that when you click on a map in this section now, if anybody has ordered anything for this particular site, the orders section on the right-hand side will display what type of order has been placed. And if you see this icon here appearing, that means that somebody has already exported something for this particular area from the system, and it may be something that you can reuse going forward. And I'll show you where you go in the system to re-access that. It's always worth keeping an eye out for that. Top left-hand corner, keyword search facility. So you can search through any of the information that you've entered when saving your map onto the system. The file name, reference, description, anything that you've entered on the right-hand side, you can search through there. Just be aware if you are using the open map section that it does apply a date filter to it on this latest version. So initially when you go in, you will only see the maps saved onto the system in the last 2 years. If you want to look further back through your saved maps, just update those filters and it will allow you to go as far back as you like on the system. You've got that option there. So that's the open map section. Now, obviously, one of the prerequisites of searching through your saved maps, you have to be able to save them in the first place. So the icon for this is immediately to the right-hand side. And that's very useful when you're initially looking at a site and you're just literally putting outlines on to get quotes for what the data sets would be. What you can do is put your outlines onto the map, save that map down onto the system, which will then retain your outlines where you've put them. So if you do need to, as I say, go often get authorization from a client for a particular download, something like that. As I say, you can put your outlines on, get an idea of what the pricing is, save it onto the system. Once you've got the authorization, just come back in, reopen that via your Save Map section. All of your outlines will be there. It's then literally a case of checking out with the relevant data that you need. And again, I will demonstrate this process as we go through. Moving across the top taskbar, the help section there will link you through again to the training center, the various training guides that can help you. And to the right of that, notifications with regards to a couple of the data sets that Paul mentioned earlier, things like the Z mapping 3D data, where we have a bespoke option available to you. So if we don't have the data immediately available in the system, Z mapping will go away and create the data set. But obviously that may not be available immediately. In those scenarios where your export data isn't immediately available, your notification section there will notify you once it's available to download from the order history section. And I'll show you where that's located in a second. But it just allows you to go off and do other bits and pieces within the system, or if you've ordered something and you go in the following day, that will tell you whether or not your order is ready. The shopping basket icon probably needs no introduction in this day and age, particularly where we've been in lockdown for so long. And with this particular process, very similar to your Amazons and things of that type, you just select your products from the export section that you want to order, drop them into the shopping basket, check out at the end when you're ready. And again, I'll just demonstrate that as we go through. On the right-hand side, order history, an important area as far as this version of Promap is concerned, firstly, because this is where you can access the order history section. You're automatically taken into order history whenever you order anything in this version of Promap, but the order history link there will allow you to get into here at any stage as well. And I mentioned before about ordering some of those data sets, which might take a little bit longer to come through. Once you've seen your notification, click on that link that I've just shown you under account to order history. It will take you through to this area here. You'll find your export in there and you will be able to download it from there. In order history, in the central section, it will give you information about your orders, the date and time of the order, the products, the types, the references, the status of the order. To the right-hand side, the order details. So it will give you the order number, what was actually ordered. So this was the master map topography layer, which was ordered as a DWG with a 10-meter grid line. So I know exactly what preferences were chosen for it. I can then download that file from there. I chose it initially as a DWG. If I then decide actually I want to download it in a different format as well, perhaps a DXF, DGN, GZ file, I can select it as that and download it in that format as well if I need to. There are a number of options available to you under this order history section. Down the left-hand side, if you're searching through your various orders, you can search based on keyword, order type, date range, license status. If you want to look purely at your orders or look at the organization as a whole, you've got that there as well. The other thing to remember in this section is it will now also tell you when the data in there is licensed till. An addition in this version of Promap, very, very useful, as I say, to just making sure that you are using your data that is currently licensed. So that's under the order history section. We will return to this a couple of times as we go through. Also under the account section, admin, which has a couple of useful features as far as exporting is concerned in there. Normally when you go in, it will take you straight through to the My Settings section that you've got here. Now this will allow you to apply site markers, apply different measurement units, which are probably more relevant to the print aspect of Promap. But you can also, if you want to, add grid lines on from here. So if you want to see the effect that adding grid lines will have when you then go to export it, this will give you some idea of that. And again, you can then set your grid line delineations as you want to from there. If you're tracking spend on the system, also very useful. If you're trying to allocate a cost to a particular job, particular client, the expenditure section, which you'll have access to, will allow you to run a number of different reports on a number of different date ranges, so you can track exactly your spend and then allocate it to the jobs accordingly. So that's our top taskbar. The bottom of the screen, some useful information there. Will tell us which map layer we've currently got open, then gives us the easting and northing coordinates, OS tile number and national grid reference for wherever our cursor is positioned on the screen. So if your outlining process is going to involve you using easting and northing coordinates as an example to outline the area that you're interested in, that tool will assist you with that particular process. As you move across the bottom taskbar, site information, very useful when you're trying to find out address information. If you're trying to export data for an area, you want to make sure that you've got particular addresses, easting and northing coordinates, things like that within it. Click on the site information tool, click on your map, and it will immediately then give you the easting and northing coordinates for the point that you've clicked and the nearest postal address to it. So again, just making sure that we are exporting what we need to. The site marker option to the right-hand side of that, as I say, you can toggle that on and off as you're using the map. If you do have it displayed, it won't appear on your export data when you take it across anyway, but as I say, can be useful from the point of view of locating your site. To the right-hand side of that, that's where you've got your zoom options, although most people, to be honest, tend to just use the mouse wheel at this particular stage. On the left-hand side of the screen, that's where you've got the 3 different journeys that you can take through the system. Export, the one we're looking at today, taking data into CAD GIS. The print option, if you want to produce maps through Promap, print them out as PDFs or JPEGs, and also where you can order reports. If export is going to be the job that you're doing most often, it will automatically open to that when you log into Promap if you haven't selected a default, but you can also make it your default tab so it will automatically open to there. The reason that that's important is the draw and measure tools in this version of Promap that help you outline your site are now directly linked to the task that you undertake on the left-hand side. So, as I say, to get the relevant tools that you need for outlining your site, just make sure you've got that export tab selected in there. So we've looked at the sort of main screen and some of the more important elements as far as exporting is concerned. Let's now go in and do a practical example of how I get the data out from my site. Now, for this particular example, I'm just going to use a postcode. So I've entered my postcode into the top left-hand corner. What it will then do is give me a list of all the addresses that fit that particular criteria. So I'll just enter my information into there. It then lists all of the addresses, as I say, that fit the criteria for me. And just as an aside, if you do want to use Promap as a system to allow you to get addresses, postcode information, it's not going to restrict you to 10 or 12 a day as other certain well-known websites do, or charge you for any over and above that. The searches that you do, it's ideal for that as well. So, as I say, just something to bear in mind. Select your property from the list. Promap will then automatically do 3 things for you. Firstly, it will open up the map of your site on this open map layer, the free to view, free to roam layer on the right-hand side, and all the map layers from aerial downwards in this list, free to view, free to roam around on. So certainly when I'm trying to locate the site, make sure that I've got the right area that I want to export, these are the map layers that I'm going to use for that. What Promap will also do is automatically search to see if anybody within your organization has ordered anything for this site previously, or has even just saved a map for this site previously, potentially a quote, as we mentioned before, into the system. If they have, we'll tell you how many orders there are, how many saved maps there are, and the little icons just to the right-hand side of that, when you click on them, will immediately shortcut you through to those areas, display the relevant maps for you so you can potentially select them from there. In the case of the saved maps, totally avoid viewing charges. In case of the orders, might save you incurring an export charge where you don't need to, if somebody has already exported something for that site. So, as I say, it will take us in initially from there. Now, with regards to the map layers on the right-hand side, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people, when they're looking to export the data from Promap, and Paul mentioned this in his part of the presentation as well, are looking to take the main export out the master map topography layer. Now, as I said before, it is worth being aware that with regards to the draw and measure tools and the map layers on the right-hand side, even if you want that master map topography layer data, you don't have to go into that master map topography layer on the right-hand side, have it displayed, to be able to order it. If I wanted, for example, to order it from the vector map local layer, which probably gives me enough information on it to make sure that I've got the right area for my export, everything like that, but again, it's free to view, free to roam around on, I can then use the draw and measure tools within Promap just to highlight the area that I want to export. And as soon as I highlight that area, what it will then do is drop the pricing in on the left-hand side of the screen. And as you'll see from the listing there, my master map is already available to me. So I can add it into the basket from here. And by ordering it this way, I've avoided having to pay the viewing charge going to the master map player. Now, there are obviously might be situations where you want to go into the master map. Perhaps there's a level of detail that you particularly need. There are map style options available in master map, which can be of assistance when you're actually defining the area that you want to export. So as I say, there may be a need to go in there, but if you can outline your site on these higher level layers, you will be able to order your master map topography layer export without incurring an unnecessary viewing charge. Now, I mentioned about some of the map styles and how they may assist you when you're defining your export area. So I am going to go into that master map layer just to look at that scenario. Now, when you click on master map, you go into the layer. As I mentioned earlier, it's the only layer that incurs a viewing charge on the system. It's the only one that has roaming limits on it. If you are about to incur a viewing charge or a roaming charge, the system will always tell you. It is very transparent in that regard. Here it's telling me what the viewing charge is, what it relates to, and it requires me entering my references before I proceed any further. With regards to those viewing charges and roaming charges, it is also worth mentioning at this particular stage, they have recently been dramatically reduced on the system and are now approximately half of what they were before. With regards to the viewing charges, again, those have been reduced, and you'll also find that the amount of free roaming that you can do on the system has been dramatically increased. On that master map topography layer, you can now roam up to 5.5 kilometers squared around your site. Make sure that you're exporting the right area, whereas previously it was just a kilometer squared. So as I say, other enhancements that will help you in your use of the system. Once you've accepted your charge, so go into the map. Now, I mentioned about the map styles and how they might help you. With regards to the 3 styles that are available, you've got color, black and white, and the hybrid, which is the really useful one. Color, the one we've got displayed now, to be honest, mostly used for things like presentations, property particulars, brochures, tends to be used more on the printing side. The black and white, planning applications, land registry work, that tends to be work there. I tend to prefer this one when I'm exporting because I can see more clearly the area I've delineated. The third option, hybrid, allows you to take the area layer that we've got available in Promap, and Paul touched on this earlier, and overlay it with that master map data. So if there is particular bits of information that you're not seeing on the detail mapping, but you are seeing on the aerial, this will allow you to combine the two so that you can see the two elements together. You can then, using the draw and measure tools, apply your export outline on there to get in exactly the area that you need. So as I say, just using that map style can really help you there. Now, once you've used the draw and measure tools to apply your outline on there, and there's various tools that you've got available to you on that right-hand side of the screen. Let's demonstrate a couple of those, in fact. The fill tool. So if you've just got an individual building, something like that, that you want to export the data for, click on fill, click inside the boundary of the shape that you want to export. Just take a couple of those out, there we go. And it will immediately apply an outline to that particular area. And as soon as you've outlined it, as I mentioned before, it will drop your pricing in on the left-hand side of the screen. If you're doing a more complicated site, use a combination of the snap to point and shape tool. Snap to point effectively turns your outlining process into a glorified dot to dot. And the dots that appear on the screen indicate any changes in direction of the lines that they're on. What we can then do is use the shape tool immediately to the right of that to join those dots up and define the area exactly that we want to export. And again, once we click on that area to select it, it brings in our pricing on the left-hand side. If you're just doing a basic area, you just want to apply a rectangle to indicate your export area, the rectangle tool is there also to allow you to do that. Along the bottom of that section, if you want to adjust your outlines, so for example, if I decide actually I need to add a little area into my export area that I've defined here, I can use the add remove point tool to literally just update that to make sure that I'm exporting the area that I need. And you may find on occasion, I mentioned before about the importance of selecting the right tab on the left-hand side here. And this can also be important to those people who are printing maps from the system as well as exporting. And we have a number of clients who do that. What they tend to find is that they will apply their outline in print. So let's say I'm just going to use my title fill outline on my site here to outline the title area. But when they go across to export, it doesn't carry that title outline over. What you've got the ability to do, if you have accidentally outlined your site in print, or you are planning on printing as well, and you want to use this outline on the export side also, if you select your shape, right click on it, it will bring up this little drop-down menu. From there, you'll find a copy option. And if you select that, switch across to your export, and paste it, it will then drop your shape in position so that you, again, can make sure that you're exporting exactly the same area that you're printing. So as I say, around the draw and measure tools, a number of options that are available to you. Fill for individual shapes, snap to point and the shape tool to do more complicated areas, rectangle is a more basic shape. And then as I say, you've got that copy and paste if you have added something on the print side so that you can bring that shape into export and overlay it. Now, once you've got your site outlined onto the mapping, you're then into just selecting your data sets. And Paul has taken you through all of the various data sets that are displayed in this area here, the current mapping, 3D models, height data, aerial photography. The only one that I will mention with regards to the master map topography layer, if you are taking height data as well for that, if you want to create your own 3D image in, you do have a bundle option available under the current mapping that will allow you to take the master map topography along with either the OS Terrain 5 DTM or the OS Terrain 5 contour data, which will give you a significant discount on the height data element of it. So you do have that there. So, as I say, I've got my site displayed on the screen. Now, this might be the stage where you decide, actually, before I go away and incur the cost of this £17.50, I just want to check with my client they want to go ahead with that. So, at this point, you could save the map onto the system. So I go into my training section. I can create a new folder there if I want to. So I could call this export quotes. So just dropping that information into there, create the folder and select it. I then just save this map into this particular folder. So we'll call this 1 Glen Road export quotation. Give it a reference and then save it onto the system. And as I say, I now know the price of this, can go off to my client, check that they want to go ahead with that. If they do, I can just come back, go into my open save maps, find that particular map, reopen it, and all I've then got to do, select the data set, add it into the shopping basket. That will change the icon on the left-hand side to view basket, and it will drop my item in the top right-hand corner into that shopping basket section. To the right-hand side, what it will then do is show me the cumulative cost of everything that I've ordered in Promap to this point. Now, once you've selected your various data sets that you want to add in, click on the shopping basket. View it. That will take you into the export section. Now, into the checkout section. Now, the first thing you'll be required to do here is select the initial format that you want to export your data in. Most people at this stage, certainly if they're using the CAD applications, tend to use the DWG. That's the one I'm going to go for today. I can select grid lines, whether I want to apply them, and if I do want to apply them, at what intervals. I'm going to take them at 10 meters for today. Most CAD users, once they put it into CAD, will then tend to use that to assist with working out scale, things of that particular type. Make sure that my references are correct on the system. And once I've entered all of that information in, I just submit my order. Now, before it takes me to the order history section where I can download my data, ready to put it into my CAD package, it will prompt me once more just to save what I've done, just recording the fact that I have incurred this cost. So we save it on there, confirm it, and it takes me into my order history section. Under order history, my dataset will appear at the top there. This one already complete and available to download. I can just download the file from there. That will bring up my download bar and I just download it onto my system from there, ready to upload into CAD. If I decide, okay, I've taken it as a DWG, but I also want it as a DXF as well, I can also select a DXF option. Again, apply grid lines in there if I want to, and then just generate a file in that format also. So as I say, a couple of different options available to you there in terms of how you might outline your site, the formats that you might take, and that order process. As I say, if you do want to go back in and order something, alter something that you've done previously, you can go back into your previous orders via this order history section and do exactly that. So we've taken you through the how process as far as the system is concerned. At this point, I'll just hand back over to Paul just to take you through the remainder of the presentation. Paul, back over to you.
Well, thanks for that, Nick. Well, look, I hope you found that useful. I mean, it's clear, just a sort of closing thought, really, for myself. The data market is clearly evolving in terms of how you actually get the data, how quickly you need it, and what you need to do with it afterwards. And it's clear that while Promap is still a fantastic tool to get this, we're beginning to see other customers where we're running trials and running ways of getting data to them by things like batch delivery process, where an email will come in. And we will fire the data back to them in that way, or perhaps API call off if you're looking at that kind of thing. And Landmark is developing an API hub where you'll be able to access various secure APIs and pull off the data that you require. And for those of you who work in GIS, we've also got the ability to fire data feeds into you, so you can ingest them yourself and begin your own application from there. So yeah, if any of that strikes a chord, and if you'd like to look at how you actually get hold of the data, then please, by all means, do talk to us about that. So thank you very much for accessing today, for attending today, and your interest in Promap. I'm going to put my details on screen in a minute, so if you do think of any questions post the session, please do ask myself or Nick, or even our customer service team. We're always happy to help and support. As I mentioned earlier, the Friday Promap webinar is now a series, so we've got a number of these coming up. So again, if these benefit you or your colleagues, please do sign up. The next one next Friday, we'll be looking at the sort of more advanced tools into the printing process. And the week after, we're running our first Promap clinic, which is a live session where you can ask questions of Nick, put him on the spot, of ways of issues you might be having with Promap, and look at how we can maybe solve them. So look, that's it in terms of the webinar today. Myself and Nick will stay online for a few moments. If there are any questions you want to ask, please do use the question facility on the right hand side of the screen, and we'll stay online and answer them for you. If not, thank you very much for your attendance today. Please do look out for the ones in the future. Please do sign up. We hope to see you on one of those every Friday at 12. There is a question just come in, Nick, which I think I'll just fire at you if I may. Good
No
question,
problem.
interesting question. Actually, it's true. In the export section, when you've got export selected on the left-hand side of the screen, why aren't there the same options for drawing tools when you're exporting as there are when you're printing, for example?
Yeah. And you will notice this when you go into printing, there's some additional options that will appear on that side over there. The reason for this is the print section is really the only area, and this is printing where you're taking it as a PDF or a JPEG, that require those additional tools. When you export data from Promap, you literally are just defining the area that you want to export, and it is just taking out the raw data. It won't take any customization that you may have added to the mapping. So there's absolutely no point in adding text boxes, symbols, other shapes into there. All you're literally looking to do when you export is define the area you want to export. You're then just taking out the raw data, and when you put it into CAD, that's where you're then going to be adding your customization. The thought there is that you're going to use the more developed drawing tools within AutoCAD to do that type of work in there. You're only taking the raw data across. So as a result of that, what it does is takes out those unnecessary tools and leaves you purely with the ones that are relevant on there. So that's the reason that it will do it. If there is a particular tool that you're interested in, let's just have a look. I've just had another question come through. I'm just seeing if it's related to this. If there is a particular tool that you've got under the print section that you want to make use of, perhaps the title fill tool as one of them, what you could do is, as we mentioned earlier, use the title fill tool to outline your site, as I've done there, then copy that particular shape. Give me 2 seconds. I think where I'm clicking backwards and forwards between screens, my screen's got slightly stuck. But as I say, what you could do at this stage is simply select your shape, right click on it, copy it, go into export and paste it, and that will put your outline in. But as I say, reason for it is just removing the unnecessary tools that you don't need.
Great, thanks, Nick. Well, I'll pick up the next question that's come. It's an interesting question and one we're asked quite a lot about, which is licensing. So can you provide more information on licensing, simply how the use of downloaded data as base map, overlay with data, import for clients, etc.? It's a good question. The licenses that come automatically with everything you take out of Promap are to be considered on a project basis. Now, they all come with third-party digital sharing rights and archiving rights as well. So once you take the data out and you're the owner of that, you can share that with all the people who are working on that specific project. So as long as it relates to the specific project you're working on, all the downloaded data you've taken, all the derived data you produced from your own is fully licensed, and you get that within the archiving rights for 13 years on the back of that as well. If there's any specific user case I possibly haven't covered there, again, please drop me an email. My data's on screen now. We can talk it through with you and find the solution. But in most cases, if you think of it from a project basis, but you are welcome to share that with anyone who's working on that specific project. So I hope that answers your question. As I say, there don't appear to be any other questions coming through at the moment, but myself and Nick will stay online for a few moments if there are. If not, and say if you want to ask us anything, please do drop us an email with the details on screen, or if there's any samples you want to see of anything you've seen today that you'd like to have a play with, again, please do let us know, and we'll have a look. Again, if you want to talk about how the data could be possibly delivered using the batch, the API, or the data feeds, again, we'd love to have that kind of conversation with you. But if not, thank you again for your interest in Promap. Look out for the future Friday webinars, and yeah, hopefully catch up with you on one of them. But if not, for today, thank you and goodbye.